Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Gunnar. I'll be doing episode 4 of my Let's Talk About Me series. This is when I have the opportunity and the privilege to talk to you guys about my life, give you information, and that way you guys are better informed and you guys can make a basis of how I live my day-to-day life. And you guys seem to be enjoying the series by itself. I appreciate all you guys that are supporting it with a like and, it will jump into the conversation with the comments below. I appreciate that, and that stuff is definitely not going unnoted. But when it comes down to the main gist of it, the previous episode I talked about high school, collected a couple of thoughts, gave you guys information basically in regards to my struggles. And high school is definitely an interesting time, I think, in anybody's life, because it's a completely different inevitability compared to the previous years you've probably had in elementary and middle school. Now, it's not college, it's not that crazy, but, it gets to the basics. It's kind of like the middle child in this circumstance. You have the previous years, and high school is the middle. So, with that in regard, guys, I did talk about that, and I talked a little bit about graduation and the functionality of college and where I plan to be, but when it comes down to the main gist of it, today was my graduation party. I got to meet up with family, friends, and it was a lot of fun. And in regards to, a lot of events that happened today, I did collect a fair amount of money, but that's kind of how graduations work, the party section of it, because when you are a guy or male or whatever, you tend not to get prizes, you tend not to get, objects, because that's kind of a female thing. I'm not saying that in a direct or indirect statement, but, when you're a girl, you get dresses, clothes, you get all this fun stuff that they tend to use. Guys just get a lot of money, and I was pretty pleased with the outcome. So when it comes down to it, I did get to talk to my cousins, and it's always good to talk to them. We used to not be as close a couple months ago. I kind of went a year without really talking to anybody, but today was definitely a refresher, and it was a lot of fun to see what they were up to. I'm going to be completely honest. I feel like all the bad tensions between us has kind of evaporated, which is good. And maybe I'll talk about that in a different episode. But as for the time being, it was a privilege to be able to talk to them and, not want to start some kind of issue, I guess you could say. So in regards to that, it was a lot of fun. Now, in this episode, I will be talking to you guys about a story, and I think you guys will enjoy it. I have told this story before, but if you have been around to hear it, you've been around my channel for a long time. This story is about a year and a half old since I told it the original time, so hopefully you new subscribers will like it. Hopefully you guys will get a good laugh, and I imagine you guys will get to develop more of a perception of who I am. So, basically what happened in 2011, yes, 2011, I went out to a movie with some friends. I basically bought her. She was a good friend of mine, and I knowed her for pretty much my entire life. We went to a movie, and it was something of the equivalency of, kind of like a delusion movie. And I don't know the whole storyline, but, his kids died, his wife died, and the functionality of it is kind of on the basis of Shutter Island. It kind of fits into that delusional proportion where you kind of lose your sanity. And, afterwards, we kind of drove back, and me being me, I did have a huge crush on this particular female. I'd known her pretty much my whole life, and, I chased her, for a long time, in the sense that, obviously I had emotional connections toward her, and it was hard to break that later in life, but I think everything's good now from that standpoint. Now, how does this relate to the funny story? Well, basically, I did some fun things. I was doing stunts, I guess you could say, speeding to a certain degree, but it's not like I was going crazy. I was doing fun stuff, stopping and doing all that. We got back, and my great idea was that, they were going one way towards her house, and I had just come from her house more or less because I thought I missed them or whatever. And what basically happened is my great idea was to do a 180 turn in reverse, and it was fun. I'm glad I didn't hit a car because I didn't look, and at that time I'd only had my license for about 4 months, so definitely I was a pro back then. And I guess that's kind of how that stopped. Now, that's not the story. The best part gets even more crazy. I had this sense that I wanted to thrill seek, and, I wanted to go find somebody within my grade, couple of years older or younger, and at the time it wasn't illegal. It's not like I was gonna fucking rape somebody, but, I wanted to have some fun, and I was basically going out looking for people that were, about my age, and it was fun. I was driving around and listening to music with my iPad, because I had an iPad at the time, and I did a lot of fun stuff on that, and I still have my iPad to this day. It's a lot of fun to definitely use that technology at the disposal of your hands, but I'm listening to music. And I look over to my left, and there's a car just stuffed with females. Stuffed. And I can't see them, But they egg it on, they're kind of stop going, kind of rumming the engine, putting their hands out of the vehicle, shaking them, waving them, and all that fun stuff. So I'm like, okay, this is what I've been looking for. This is gonna be a lot of fun. And we're at a stoplight, and basically we play chase, okay? I'm basically chasing them, I get in front of them, stop, and do all this fun stuff. And when I mean stop, I don't mean an immediate just stop, but I would stop, go, false signal, all this fun stuff. Now I know it sounds like super illegal, but this is like 11 o'clock at night. Nobody's driving around. The city is pretty much empty, and that's about it. I mean, there's not a whole lot of traffic, but I guess after a while, when we drove and did all this fun stuff that I thought was fun for my perception, I didn't think I was breaking any huge laws. I didn't imagine there would be a repercussion out of it, because I was looking for cops. I mean, I know where they sit, because I've been housed to this area for pretty much my whole life. And cops, they want to think they're really sneaky, but they're really not. I mean, from time to time, I see them in some pretty sneaky spots. But, on the main road, not too much. I'm usually not too worried about them, because there's only so many places that you can, dig yourself into and implant yourself in this sneaky position. But basically what had happened is, I guess, they didn't take it as a joke anymore, and they stopped in a residential area, and they must have been talking to, 911, and they had called the cops on me, which was an interesting one, and I think the dispatch wanted to set up a trap. And what they did is they would continue driving around for another 5-10 minutes, and we got to this light, and I don't know if it was part of the trap, part of the circumstance, or not, but what happened is they went through the yellow light, and I was pretty much right behind them. I mean, I was not following too close, but at the same expense, I could definitely stop. It's not like I would hit them if they just slammed their brakes, but the functionality of it still aligned. So I went through this yellow light, and I look at my rear view mirror, and there's a cop. There's a cop behind me signaling and, flashing his lights, and at this time I am just like, oh God, what did I just do? I should have went home, and I'm going through all my regret statements, and I'm trying to configure my idea of how I want to do this. And basically what had happened is I pull over, and I'm in this panic mode. I mean, I'm not in tears, I'm not crying, I'm not doing any of that shit, but I'm trying to function, I'm trying to act, intelligent to the officer. I want to articulate to him that, oh, it's all my fault, I apologize, the situation was completely unfit for this particular event, and I shouldn't have done what I did. And he just kept drilling me, like as if he didn't hear me the 300th time that I apologized and said it was all my fault. And what basically happened is they ran my registration and they called my parents, which they didn't really care. They thought, even to this day, that it was probably pretty stupid, especially with the repercussions that would ensue afterwards. But when it comes down to the main gist of it, yes, I got pulled over for my first time ever by following a bunch of females that, in a sense, to my perception to this day, I will still say that they egged it on. If they were not interested, I don't think you would have stuck your hand out of the vehicle and waved it up and down and screamed and pumped the radio as loud as you could and all that other fun stuff. Now, granted, I did illegal things, and I'll take the full responsibility for that. I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys, like, oh, no, I didn't do nothing wrong. I didn't stop in the middle of the street and false signal multiple times to, pretend this was more of a game. But yeah, guys, that's how I got my first ticket, repercussion by police force, stuff like that. And I remember when he called for backup, that was the best part of the world. It was like, the scrawny little guy inside of this car, you're afraid of me. Like, what do I possess in physical power that you would possibly be scared of? Like, what am I gonna do? Beat you with my iPad? Like, come on, buddy. I don't think you needed reinforcements. But anyway, what happened is they flagged them down, they got a report, did all that fun stuff, and I got disturbing the peace and something driving. It was like negligent driving or something of that equivalency. And what would happen is it would take an entire year and a half for me to actually go to court and try to appeal this and do all that fun stuff. And at the circumstance, we pled non-guilty just because I figured I could probably get disturbing the peace eliminated, because that's a pretty big fine by itself, or at least it can be. But let's be honest, the court is just trying to get as much money out of you as they can, because they got to pay for stupid things that don't need to be fixed in your city in the first place. Like roads that just got fixed like a year later or something, or earlier of that equivalency. But anyway, guys, that's really how I got pulled over. But how does this relate to my court thing? Well, the charges would actually get dropped a year and a half later. So I got pretty lucky. I was the fortunate one, and the situations that would ensue, I can promise you guys I'm not chasing any girls around, and I'm not doing anything like that, because I don't find it to be something of a circumstance that's probably too important. I definitely don't want to get more tickets. But I got really lucky, and I guess my pro tip for you guys would be, probably don't fall around females even if they do egg it on, because the repercussions can definitely be of the highest regard. And I think it's kind of funny that, they called the cops. But that's the forward version of this, guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed. But in the next episode, I'll talk about something new for you guys. I'll try to spice it up, but I thought you guys would enjoy a story of me following around females and doing stupid stuff at the time and doing a lot of traffic violations. So I guess that's about it for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next installment. This is NMO, and I'll be signing out. Peace.
Gentlemen, that was textbook.